Hello, everybody. Welcome to our webinar on relocation and talking about how top brokerages are focused on increasing relocation efforts. So appreciate it. In business in 2023. Thanks for joining us. We're going to kind of wait a few minutes and give everybody time to join. I don't know if we have, well, it seems like we have some people that have jumped on, but we're generally, we've got about 13 attendees. That's wonderful. So thank you for joining us. Just give it a couple of minutes. We were talking about our experiences in where we are in our weather right now. So while we pass the time and not bore people, even though we'll talk about people and formally introduce everybody. Denise, where are you right now? Where in the world are you?
I'm in the Fort Lauderdale area. Nice and hot.
Nice and hot. Okay, temperature guess. Let's see, what month are we in? We're in April, so I'm guessing we're getting up to 90.
Oh, not yet, Andre. Close.
Okay. I would warn everybody that
enough months of that.
Yeah, I know, truly. Everybody wants to live in Florida like for a certain period, and then they want to get the hell out of there. Denise is going to keep me on track all day. Just be prepared. Mike, where in the hell are you?
I'm not in Florida. I'm in Canton, Ohio, which is home of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So.
Okay, excellent. Okay, and temperature
and we're not
there?
80 either. So.
No, you got to be like, I'm guessing I'm going for like 65, 60, but that's nice.
I wish. We're getting freeze warnings at night right now, which we should not be getting, but we're getting.
Oh no.
So.
Okay. All right. Still. All right. Rob, our international player, giving us a little global presence here. What about you?
Yeah, I'm in Brantford, Ontario, which is the birthplace of Wayne Gretzky. So the great one here, and we're sitting at probably around 7 or 8 degrees.
No. I'm sorry. We need a little Fahrenheit.
No.
I don't speak Fahrenheit. I'm sorry.
I think that's like 40 or 50. I think that's like 40, 50.
I'll park it.
I know. What you have to learn if you work for a Canadian company, that when they say it's minus 15 and you're like, how are you alive? It's not. It's cold, but it messes with the head of the Americans. It does. I am in it's funny. I feel like you guys are starting to say things that they're famous for sports wise. I am in the home of the famous Capitals. So there, Rob.
There you go.
So I'm in DC if we're going to go hockey. Mm-hmm. And it is, I don't know. I never get outside. So I think it's like low 60 days. I think it's actually a stunningly beautiful day. So maybe I'll find out later. All right, let's see. We've got a fair number of attendees, and we've got about 1 minute to start. I think I will go ahead and start the introductions so we can kick off. I know everybody has limited time, and much as you all want to hear us banter, we'll kind of talk about what we're going to talk about. So I am Audrey Whittington. I am the Vice President of Sales here and Head of Strategic Partnerships. I have a pretty long track record in the industry, like 20, 25 years, longer than I care to admit for my it will age me if I'm not careful, but I've done all things B2B for largely residential real estate and have a pretty fair amount of knowledge of commercial. So let me pass it to Denise. If you can introduce yourself, that'd be great.
I am Denise Talboy. I work for the Kai's family of companies, and I head up the Global Relocation and Corporate Services division at all our brands. And we are the largest independent in the state of Florida with 50 plus branches, over 3,000 agents. And I sit in Fort Lauderdale, but we cover many markets of Florida.
Cool, thank you. All right, we'll go to Rob.
Yeah, my name is Rob Love, and I'm the Director of Marketing Technology at Sotheby's International Realty Canada. I've been in PropTech for about 20 years now and worked for a number of companies. The most recently, prior to Sotheby's, I worked with a company that did international real estate. So we focused a lot on some of the major franchises internationally. And before that, I worked for Top Producer CRM, which I'm sure many of you are familiar as well, managing their MLS relations team.
Nice. Wonderful. And last but not least, Mike.
So my name is Mike Meinard, and I've been around, it feels like forever now in the real estate space, but have been in the tech sector since I was in middle school, believe it or not. I've had had tech
All right,
companies since I was in middle
that one.
school. However, I've been in the real estate sector since 99, 2000. So it's, and have been the owner of Delta for the past 23 years. So obviously I've seen a lot in the real estate space. And I will, one thing I will say, my first introduction to real estate was like, what in the world? This is totally different than all other businesses I've done business with.
It's very true. It's definitely its own animal.
Yes.
Well, all right. Well, let's kick off with, let's talk a little about what relocation means. I know some people that are attending are probably do like what Denise does and they're in relo all day, but some are not. And so I think, but just to set the table really quick, let's talk about what does relocation entail? What percentage is it of your business? What does it encompass? Let's just set the table really quick so everybody knows like what we're focusing on, and then why we're focusing on it. So Denise, I will go to you again first.
So my partners on the call will understand that when somebody says relocation, it's not just corporate relocation. So at Kai's, we have about 12, 14 lines of business. That includes broker-to-broker referrals. That includes any affinity business, internet business. It encompasses an enormous amount, especially at our size. Corporate relocation is about 20% of our business, 25% of our business, and that fluctuates, obviously, depending on pandemic or non-pandemic business. But we have a department of about 8 people, and the managers handling corporate relocation are very dedicated and specific to home finding versus corporate listings.
Okay, cool. Thank you very much. And I'll go to you, Rob. So you can talk.
Sure.
Talk
Yeah.
a little more.
So, I mean, for us, I don't know exactly what proportion of our business, but it's certainly growing. We're a national brokerage, so we're across Canada, and a fairly significant piece of our business, particularly since COVID, which we all know has kind of increased job portability, is definitely happening through relocation. And so, for us, relocation continues to be a focus for us and our marketing team, and really generally trying to essentially help clients come to a new city and understand what's there for them, and in some cases providing our agents with the tools to really be able to showcase properties in a way that you can without actually having someone there and be present. And so from my perspective, that's sort of how I see relocation for us.
Perfect. Okay. I'm not going to ask Mike because you just dovetailed me perfectly into segueing over to Mike, which is really about tools and tech, right? So Mike, I don't know if everybody knows what Delta Media does, so please do feel free to take a second, because it's a comprehensive and large company that serves a lot of the larger independent brokers and their relocation efforts. So if you take a second and please say what Delta does. Yeah, and then talk about sort of where you see, it going as a tool provider in effect.
Yeah. So I think at a high level, I'll best summarize Delta as this: is we're a MarTech firm. So we provide marketing and technology tools to the real estate sector. And I know that's a big umbrella, but we'll just kind of leave it at that, because really my perspective as it relates to this webinar and all of you attending it is my background's a data analyst. I'm big into math and data. I geek out on it, engineer. I love seeing the patterns, the behaviors, all of those things, which is one of the reasons why we're so good at SEO, because we look at patterns and behaviors of people and build systems to that. But we're seeing so many trends now of things that are happening because of the changes that are happening in relocation as a big umbrella in the past 3 years. And we're seeing that play out with tech and what the general public expects or what they're looking for, which is different today than it was just 3 years ago. So really that's where I'm coming from on this panel. Not so much, here's how you run it, or here's. So.
No, that's perfect. And you are working, and I think it's okay to talk a little bit about this. I know they're going live soon, but I don't think they'll mind us mentioning it. You are working with Baird, which is a mutual client for us, and doing some relocation stuff with them. I don't want to talk out of turn of things that are not live for them, so please feel free to shut me down. But for companies like Baird, like, you're doing some things that have to do with localized insights, some stuff that I'm not promoting local logic per se, but but as we focus on sort of the data outside the four walls, and really helping people look differently in terms of where they might want to move. Can you address that at all?
Yeah, I think all too often we get caught up, and I'll speak for myself, I get caught up in the data. We get caught up in analyzing the studies and the data. And, we can look at the study that was done last year saying, that says how many millions of people, the increase are looking to relocate just because of telecommuting, the fact that they don't have to go into a physical office anymore. So we know that workplace is changing. But honestly, Audrey, I like the conversations that I'm able to have. We've had nearly 10% of our workforce relocate. And we no longer hire just in our area, which we used to, apart from sales. Now we'll hire anybody anywhere for the most part. But it's interesting to have those conversations on what those people, where they love their job, they love the company they work for, but they've always wanted to live in the Carolinas or Florida or wherever it is for whatever reason, and the tools that they'll use, things that we think are novel things. Or if you said 10 years ago, hey, wouldn't it be nice to have dog parks on your map search for properties? You might say, I don't want to spend the money on that. That's kind of stupid. It's not anymore today. I flat out have one employee where her and her husband moved, and part of their search was centered around where dog parks were located and coffee shops. Who would have, that's their home buying process now. It's so different.
I think that's entirely correct. And I think that's a perfect segue into sort of the next section, which is really what I think, some of the stuff we are doing with you and everybody here on the call, candidly, of course, is a client of LocalLogic, which is, LocalLogic does everything outside the four walls, right? We're quantifying and we're saying, hey, beyond whether how many bedrooms and bathrooms, where is the dog park? Where's the coffee shop? Where's the grocery store? Is it quiet? Or is it noisy? What's the transit like? And I know that's why I work with all of you in terms of helping people to understand. I like to say you live where you work and you work where you live. So let's go into that. We'll sort of into 2023 and forward 5 years. Let's talk about what, and go back to you, Denise, like, where are we headed, do you think, in the next 5 years? Let's open this conversation up a little bit as to, gosh, what happened with the pandemic? It's changed to Mike's point. People can work remotely. Look, the number one game changer, right, is we can all work anywhere. For the most part, companies are having to adjust. Some of them are requiring you to come back in, but let's face it, most are not. So what is your feeling, Denise, in terms of how that's changed the relocation efforts within KAIS?
So I'll speak locally to South Florida, or to the markets in Florida that we cover, because I'm sure many will say that Florida is very different than other parts of the country. So where some home prices are perhaps going down in other parts, we have not seen that. But as far as the relocation piece is concerned, what's important to us is not just assigning the realtor. So we partner with the companies to be able to provide transferees solid information like the dog parks, like the city information, and LocalLogic is obviously on our website. They provide excellent information on each of the neighborhoods that may be that may be considered by the transferee. So it's important for us to assign, and we assign top relocation realtors out of, say, the 3,000, it's probably less than 10% on our corporate relocation team that are going to take not only the family to a property, but they're also going to provide information on schools, information on the area, and perhaps there's multiple areas to be considered. And that's important, to be as flexible as possible and work with the companies that entrust us with their transferees. Now, what I will say about the pandemic is, where a few years ago there was a lot remote work, we're not seeing that as much anymore. We're seeing a slight shift to a more normal market of relocations really increasing, as well as, say, the rental market. It has not, rentals are still high in our area, and there's still a lack of availability. If you want me to go a little bit further on the actual transaction, we're not seeing waiving of inspections anymore. We're rarely seeing that.
Yeah, let's hold that. Let's get into some of those details in a second, because I do want to talk about some of those trends, because we talked about it in our prep call, which was, let's talk about rentals and waiving of some inspections and seeing things sight unseen. But because I do think rentals is massive, right? So let me push that over to Rob and
Sure,
say,
yeah.
are you seeing, before we kind of dig into the
Yeah.
details and get into the weeds, are you seeing the same kind of thing for
Yeah,
Canada's a different market, you know? So
For sure. And you know, we got two factors sort of culminating as well. We have sort of a tale of two markets in Canada, right? We have our major metro areas that have seen skyrocketing prices over the last number of years. And then we have some of our sort of like smaller cities and towns that have seen price appreciation, but not nearly at the same rate. And so now a person that worked, let's say downtown Toronto, now all of a sudden doesn't have to go into the office. They have job portability. Their, you know, budget they have to purchase a studio apartment could now be used elsewhere in the country to get a different type of asset, maybe even a detached home with a yard near amenities. And so I think for us, like Canadians are seeing this. And I personally know two individuals that have relocated from Ontario to Calgary in the last 2 years. And I can say that Calgary is actually buying airspace on Ontario channels to entice people out to Calgary because they know that the real estate market is expensive here, especially near the GTA, the Greater Toronto Area. And so they're really leaning into price as a way to kind of attract people to other parts of the country. And if you're a consumer, if you're somebody who's actually living this life, it can be a real nerve-wracking experience, relocation, right? Because you have, in some cases, might know nothing about the area that you're trying to move to, and so you really need to be strategic about this. And this is why, to your point here, we have people that are now looking at renting in specific areas as opposed to buying straight out. So if you're an agent and maybe you've sort of like scoffed at renting before in the past, this is something you should seriously consider in the future, because strategies for a lot of people now include, you know, moving to a new city, renting,
right.
getting the lay of the land, understanding the market, where they want to live, where they don't want to live, and then reaching out to an agent. And if you're the sort of the person that helped them take that initial step and get their foot on the ground there, then you're really well positioned. Let's say 6 months or even a year down the road, they might be looking for an actual purchase of a home, and you know, you're in exactly the right place as an agent in that case.
Couldn't agree more. And that dovetails us. Let's jump into those weeds. Let's go in and talk about rentals, which is really, let's face it, and let's talk about three main things. Like, let's talk about three sort of major potential trends: renting, buying sight unseen, potentially waiving inspections, things like that, things you're seeing as part of relocation. But let's go to rentals first. And um, Mike, I don't know how tools are sort of being developed, like how you guys are looking at addressing this trend technologically. And then let's go to Denise, you know, in terms of the fact that people are renting first. And I look, everybody's looking at reloading. Everybody, it's an amazing question to be able to ask yourself. If I could work from anywhere, how often, I'm sorry, I'm not 20. How often in my 25 years, if you tell me you can work from anywhere, where would you work? You know, that's an amazing question. It kind of blows our minds, right? Can work from anywhere. People are working abroad. I have a guy starting next week and he's like, well, I have to go to Italy. I can work, you know, I can start from Italy if you want. And I'm like, no, that's okay. But that's completely open. That really is unfathomable to me. So what are you seeing in terms of how do we address that, Mike, from a
Yeah, I
tool
would just say,
standpoint?
yeah. So here's a few high level things that I think the industry really does need to take to heart, which is number one, there is a huge trend of people that love the job that they're in that are leaving them because they can go somewhere else that allows them to live wherever
Totally.
they want to live.
Yep.
It used to be 2 years ago, we'd run a job application for senior level web developers. We get a handful. Honestly, we just hired 3 more. We put a job ad up on a Friday, and by Monday, we had hundreds of qualified applicants,
Yep.
and the majority of them are happy in the job that they're leaving. So we need to think through that. But what is happening is those people are doing exactly what Rob outlined, and that is that they're finally waking up one morning and saying, you know what? Let's just leave. Let's go down to wherever,
right.
or go up to wherever. And because the other component of that too is we were very purposeful in surveying our employees. You know, the average employee that was allowed to work remotely that wasn't prior, and these are white collar, these are executive jobs, felt on average they received a 12% pay raise, even though there was no change in pay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, so there's these interesting dynamics going on that is really changing. So any real estate firm that scoffs at the rental side, and I'm careful with how I word this because I know there's reasons to not do rentals, but I will say this, doing rentals I think will be less of a novelty in real estate today than it was 5 years ago because of the relationship building and the transactions that then happen. And we are seeing that trend of we're having more firms wanting us to offer rental services, rental search. So that's a big segment of our industry that we never chased. We don't chase it, but we help out our clients with it. But there are companies that target rentals for people relocating for telecommuting. I mean, it's just
well,
so.
And not only that, they're doing like long-term rentals, right?
Yes.
They're Airbnb-ing or they're VRBOing, right? So they're going for a few months. And again,
Yeah.
Where you live and live where you work and work where you live. So if you are doing that, you're right. That means you have to pay attention to where that property is, whether you're renting or buying.
Yeah, and one more number one more thing I do want to share, and then
love the stats. Keep going.
Yeah, one more thing. 18.9 million Americans that telecommute are considering moving right now because they're telecommuting. So this is outside the standard what we would have termed corporate relocation 5 years ago. These are 18.9 million additional people thinking about moving right now.
Well, and, you know, let's add one more fact into this. The issue with the real estate market right now, of course, is that there's a housing shortage.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a housing shortage because rates have gone up. So in truth, if I was going to move, I would say, okay, well, maybe, you know, people are still buying homes and they're still selling if they have to, for sure. And that's what relocation is all about. But I might rent for 6 months in the hopes that rates will come down, right? And then, you know, and it gives me a little more time to pick where I want to live. And then eventually I don't want to rent forever. I am going to buy. I'm going to pay whatever rate I need to pay, right? Denise, is this what you're seeing? I mean, I think the Miami market is particularly interesting because I think it's a bit of a microcosm. It's kind of like New York. It's its own. I've learned a lot about the Miami real estate market in the last couple of years. It's definitely its own little entity that it also sort of reflects I think the national market as a whole.
And I would say that Miami, Fort Lauderdale, West Palm, you can find, this is a wrench that throws into that rental thought, which I believe that renting first to get to know the area, I can understand a transferee wanting to do that. You can find rentals on the MLS, but there's markets in Florida and around the country that you cannot find rentals on the MLS. That becomes an even more challenging when it comes to relocation. Orlando's tough for rentals on the MLS. Fort Myers, our office there, same thing. And, you know, Volusia County, same thing. So it really just depends on where the transferee is going is how easy it is going to be to find a rental.
And you know what that says to me? You must be a local expert. That means that so this is a great example. I got a niece who's moving to DC. To your point, I have bought, sold, owned, rented, you named it, in the last 10 years. And certain sites have some data, some have others, right? But eventually I put her in touch with my friend, who's a very good real estate agent, who's very open to talking to renters now, and is the local expert. So in turn, it's kind of ironic, and I really, God is my witness, I did not think of this until right now. It really brings us full circle back to the residential real estate brokerage in relocation becoming an expert. Right? Because if there isn't one site that really has all the rentals, then you really have to go back to your agent to help you. Because renting is not just a student coming out of school anymore.
Correct.
Renting is a really much more, to Mike's point, verified, validated, part of the transition process. It just is, and much more of an open, valid option to buy. And I think
it takes a local expert realtor to do that, but it takes a local expert, very experienced realtor that will have the connections, that has done it before, to guide. We have no problem helping renters. I mean, I know that there's companies that have certain, they do them or don't do them, but we do them. And we help, relocation companies with them every single day.
Let me throw one more wrench in it. And again, forgive my coughing. I'm getting over something, is that can you talk a little bit about how the role, and Denise, about the role investors are playing in buying properties and then renting them? Let's talk about that.
Huge. I mean, here in Toronto, we're like the number one leading capital for cranes in North America, right? We've got something like 4 times the number of cranes as the next nearest city. So we know a little bit about new development. And when we talk about new development, particularly condos downtown, we talk about investors, because typically a lot of these condos are being bought up by investors so that they can either rent them or sell them on assignment or whatever the case may be. But the reality of that is we have, and I think last year we had over 1 million people immigrate to Canada, and we did not build anywhere near enough homes to accommodate that number of people. And that is in no way slowing down. And so the pressure that investors put on sort of the price in the major metropolitan areas is very, very, very strong. And this is, again, part of the reason why we talked about job portability and people moving to the periphery of the cities. I live in Brantford, Ontario, not 100% by choice. I would have loved to live in Oakville or Mississauga or somewhere real close to the GTA. But our budget and my family, that where we could afford what we wanted at least was, in Brantford, Ontario. And, I don't have a problem with that at all. And I think a lot of Canadians wrestle with that when they're looking for places. And, you cannot take any importance away from the investment that happens, particularly in the downtown cores of these major cities, in driving those rental prices up. I think, at this point, rental prices in even Brantford, Ontario are pretty much par with mortgage payments. Like if you buy a house and put a 15-20% down payment down, you're going to be paying as much as somebody renting, and it was not that way 5, 6, 7 years
That
ago.
is really so true, because it's, I can look out my window and see, to your point, a myriad of cranes in Northern Virginia out of DC, and they are not building condos. They are building rental units. So I think that's interesting. And Denise, I don't know if you want to comment on Miami and the
South
investor money
Florida,
in Miami is crazy. I know.
yeah, South Florida in particular, I would say the first 2 years of the pandemic, it has slowed down as far as the investment market, but it has been mainly from the Northeast. We would have people buying sight unseen, and for investment, not necessarily that they were moving. Others were moving because they wanted away from the big cities. They obviously like that Florida has no state tax. So, and that will always continue. Now it's shifting back again that we have, investors from Latin America coming back, because now obviously the borders are open. So really, it's a constant flow of investors coming in and out of South Florida. That's never changed. But the first 2 years of the pandemic were insane.
And Mike, are the tools any different in terms of, and then I'm going to go to a couple of questions as we come in the 30 minutes. Are the tools different, or is it, I like to say, and you can disagree with me, I'll give you my opinion real quick, because I love to give my opinion on things, which is that I like to say that, if you're de-risking your investment, whether you're bedrooms, bathrooms, or neighborhoods, quiet, it doesn't matter whether it's my kid buying his house for the first time, or I'm putting up a $50 million multifamily. I have to take all the factors into consideration of, climate and demographics and rent rates and all those things. So I'll let you comment on that.
So I would say the tools are maturing is a good way to phrase it. And I would say too that the way that they're being implemented is maturing.
I think that's
so it's more part of the ecosystem as opposed to it's over here. It's part of the search, or it's part of it feels more natural. But I think there's a couple points that I want to make too that I think would give potentially some very good takeaways to those on this webinar. And the one thing that I want to say is that what people are doing is they're making a lifestyle change. So when they're moving away for whatever reason and going to a new area, it's for a lifestyle change that they've always wanted to do, more so than just a corporate relocation. Again, I'm trying to think of the differences, and the reason I point out these differences is because what you have to offer comes from a different angle, so to speak. You aren't doing the corporate relocation speak. You're doing more of the lifestyle change speak, and what does that mean? And the other thing that I would point out as well is, even though we're seeing some of that data that says, okay, there's a shift of people relocating to more rural, and even what Rob brought up, it kind of fits with that. But be careful with that data. It doesn't mean that it's all going to the rural market. It's not. And it's just like that data that I see when I see that a market, their prices are in decline. Be careful with some of that, because some of those, it's a decline from the projected high that it was going to be. So even compared to last year, they're still up. Prices are still higher in a lot of those markets where they're saying they're declining. So we have to be very careful as we talk about the data and don't give up something we've done. But I think all of us need to rethink the type of information that we're putting out. And the blog posts about communities are more important today than they were even just a year ago, and especially more important than 5 years ago. So the content you're offering, and I'll give you one thing that you should do is if you can do this, Google in your market relocation to, and list out one of your cities that's a big city. Are you even in the first 5 pages? Because that's how some people are starting to search. Hey, I've always gone to vacation down in Miami, as you know, using Miami, but I want to I've been there. We keep going there every year. Let's move there. And, so people start searching more about lifestyle though, as opposed to just a property search. So I think those are the big takeaways.
That's great. And it's nice because we do all that. So I won't lie that it's nice to hear you say it.
Yeah. And I'm not plugging you. I mean, this is just behavior going on.
I know that was actually an honest feedback. So
yes.
We have some questions. So let's go to some of the questions. I actually thought yours dovetailed. I'm not going to take them exactly in order because I think this one dovetails into exactly what you were talking about, Mike. And I thought that was pretty insightful. Here's a question we got in. In your experience, what are the top 3 most important factors for consumers when it comes to relocating to a new city? So I think that kind of goes in nicely with what you just said, and I'll pass that to, I don't know, who wants to take that first, Rob or Denise?
I can go for it.
Okay, go for it. Jump on it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that firstly, I'll speak to my own experience because I've done a relocation. I moved here from Vancouver to Toronto back in 2011 when there really wasn't much information available about any of this. And so the things that were obviously very important to me were things like how safe it is in the neighborhood that I'm going to be moving to. And even when we moved to Brantford, this is something I tried to find in various places. Lifestyle, like amenities that are around me, how far they are from the highway, how close I am to the highway, noise pollution, a lot of this stuff is covered by Local Logic, of course, when on our website and other places. But this is the type of sort of outside the 4 walls Audrey mentioned information that people are looking for. I think really varies by the person. But the important thing is that you know it, right? Because when somebody's asking you about relocation, they are already going to be, again, very anxious about the process. So the more that you can come off as a local expert, the more that you can share some of these stats and information, or at least point them in the right direction, the better positioned you're going to be to get that business.
Okay, so let me, Denise, I'm going to spin it on you a second because I know you can handle it. I know exactly. Because I'm going to take you out of your comfort zone for 3 seconds because I think you can do it. It raises an interesting question, which is, residential real estate has been a little bit afraid of what to display, right? We serve our agents, we serve our sellers, we serve our buyers, and sometimes we're a little bit afraid. Crime is a great point. Mm-hmm. We have crime. Nobody's touching crime and displaying crime, and for many good reasons, right? More and more sites are actually putting up demographics now, though. LookLogic sells more demographics than like crazy. So where is that line, if you don't mind me asking you, Denise, between what can you say? I know Rob's laughing because
I think
I'm throwing you under the bus here.
I think realtors tell you that legally we can't say anything.
Yeah, it is legal. I mean, it's all fair housing, right? I mean, it's tricky though, right?
We can point them to the data, as Mike said, but yeah, you can't really discuss it. But
outside of those things, what are the 3 things that you're seeing then outside of those things?
We've Mike and you and Rob have said this before, and it really is a personal decision, whether it's corporate relocation or somebody wanting the lifestyle. What our realtors need to do, and they do, is really ask what's important to them, what the purpose is of their move. Is it personal? Is it corporate? And then tailor those response and the service we provide to them, because it is a very unique decision that brings them, say, to South Florida, say to Central Florida, Fort Myers, wherever we have offices. It's not a one fits all.
Okay, so that dovetails into another question we got into the chat, which was largely directed at you, Denise, for Kai's in Miami, but I do want to broaden it out to everybody a little bit, because I think you also dovetailed into an interesting question, which is, is this just about, you can give them all the information, but is this about some level of personal service? How does Kai's and Sotheby's, and certainly Mike, for you, when you work with companies like Baird and Bain, I know you work with some huge entities, how do they distinguish themselves? Is it just Audrey on the phone? I mean, I sat in that with a lot of really strong relo. Is it the people on the phone? Is it the information at their fingertips? Is it both? Like, what are you finding that really makes one company better than another, candidly?
I think it's all of the above. I mean, we have realtors from 50 different countries. So what the important part right from the start is
there's
matching
language.
the right realtor. Matching the right realtor to the transferee that's going to understand what their needs are. They're going to understand, I mean, if they need a specific language that the realtor needs to speak. So all that is a big part of at least our area, because we cater to such an international pool of transferees that come to our area. We know the areas, we know the realtors, and that's why we're very, very strong on making sure that they're experienced realtors that not only perhaps have worked for these companies in the past and are now a realtor. So we take not only them being a realtor, but we take their past experiences in life that are going to contribute to helping that family really settle in as quickly as possible, helping the relocation company, helping the corporation, and it really becomes a team effort.
It's an empathetic approach, really.
Indeed. There's no other way.
Sorry, go ahead, Rob. Yeah, that's good. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I mean, just to continue on that was very well put. I mean, it's a very personal experience. So I agree, like active listening is a huge part of this. Also anticipating the needs, because I think some needs are going to be unique to people, but some needs are definitely the same, right? Like things like budget, timelines, like all that information is really important to be dialed into. But more than anything, and this comes back to the relationship piece, I think that the person who is relocating needs to feel taken care of, right? They need to feel like they have boots on the ground, somebody who is working on their behalf to help them understand the market. And then once they come through, this is the part where I think distinguishes sort of like a relocation agent, somebody who specializes in it, from other agents, is your job doesn't end when they move into the house, right? That is very short-sighted thinking. You really need to make sure that you're checking back with them, that they're okay, you're referring them places if they need additional, tradespeople, that you have recommendations for them. I think this is what really separates a good relocation specialist, is that they really have a lot of connections on the ground, and they go out of their way to help not just the person find the right place, but acclimatize to that home as soon as they get there.
And that is such a to Rob's point. It's most of the time not the transferee who we have to help. It's the spouse or partner that needs most of the help, and that's where they really become even closer with the partner or spouse than with the transferee themselves, because they need to help them with the schools, they need to help them with the services and the trades, like Rob said.
Well, that's such a great point, and we'll close on that one, and we'll let everybody kind of give their closing thoughts. But let's tie it together on that. The trend in the industry in a big way is customer for life, right? And I personally, when my son moved to Altoona from Denver, the agent, I actually, I had, being in the industry forever, it's funny, you think, oh, you're in the industry forever, you must have a million realtors at your fingertips. I did end up getting referred through a referral service. I won't say the service. I got put to a local agent, like the phone connected in 3 seconds, the whole thing, right? It's actually a pretty positive experience. She knew the area. She was local. She helped us find a place. We were 3,000 miles away. Had this complete experience for him, helped him because it was his first home, and we ended up buying it. And it was phenomenal. And to your point, which got me on this, Rob, she gave us contractors out the wazoo. So this is like this customer for life. And this is there's a whole nother webinar we could really do about the whole move in the industry for customer for life. And in fact, to your point, Rob, when it came to selling it 2 years later, found that same agent because of the experience the first time. Get it on the buyer side, get it on the seller side. Absolutely. So let's find, that's my final thought, but let me go around and and just kind of if everybody has any final thoughts before we close it out.
I
Mike?
think I'll say that it's educate,
Yeah.
educate customer service customers, and it's not just words. You really have to delve in and follow through. And as far as your comment on after transaction, if I'm not mistaken, it's 20 or 25% of clients that go back to the first realtor that helped them. It is critical that realtors stay in touch with their clients. We had that discussion in the leadership team early this week. We have tools at Kai's that actually allows or helps the agents to stay in touch with the customer post-transaction. And that is, it's not just for another transaction. It's to build the relationship. It's to help them adapt to the area. And just, it's really, it goes above and beyond just one transaction.
For sure. Mike, do you have anything on that?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I would push everyone to do is to brainstorm and experience what someone may be thinking of relocating to that market because they're able to telecommute. I would actually silo it that way in your thinking. You know, what are the reasons why someone wants to come there? And then what are they looking for? What's important to them? Because your data on your website, your content on your website needs to speak to that. And in many cases, I would imagine if you go through that exercise, you'll find some things that you're not speaking to. And then you could either do a blog article or content on it or whatever it is. But I really encourage that exercise because it's good to do for everybody.
I appreciate that. Yeah, that's, you know, that's certainly the way we think here all the time is like, you have to put yourself in the shoes of the consumer. And at the end of the day, we're all consumers. It doesn't matter whether we're in the industry, we have moved, we've rented, we've reloaded. Sorry, Rob, I'll let you have the last word.
Yeah, I mean, no, these are the incredibly great comments. I think that Denise and Mike have the right idea. The only thing I will add is, you know, just listen and add context, because a lot of times these folks have done a lot of research, right? They've done a lot of looking into things. What they don't have is the context, right? So don't bombard them with information. Ask them what they know about the place. You know, like, what have they done? What have they looked at so far? And then add the context for them so that, you know, they understand that you really know the market they're moving to, and just build that relationship from there. Like any good relationship with anyone is built on the foundation of active listening, right? You need to understand what they're looking for, their motivations. And oftentimes what people tell you is not exactly the truth, right? they might say something at surface level, but when you dig a little bit deeper, they're actually not looking at this specific neighborhood. They're looking for any neighborhood that checks all of these boxes. And they might not be aware that, you know, here, and here are also places they should be looking. So really listen, add the context, and, you know, that's everything else has been said. So, yeah.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. I thought this was a great conversation. Appreciate you joining the Local Logic Masterclass on how top brokerages are focused on increasing relocations in 2023. You know, we try and do these monthly, and we try to make them interesting topics about what's happening in whether it's the residential or commercial side of the industry. So please, you know, join us for more. Thank you. Appreciate it. Bye, everybody. Thank you so much.
Take care.
Thank you.